Maybe your dreams were crushed once when you tried this and it didn't work. But no longer, because your glowstone portals will light up when you put water inside. And thus, we embark on an epic adventure long in the making. So let's go ahead and visit the Aether. The Aether is a 120.1 Forge mod, which some of you might recognize. It was the era-defining mod during the 1.7 to 112 days of Minecraft. So if you remember the means of the glowstone portal not working, yes, that all came from this mod. But what exactly is the Aether? Well, this mod adds a whole new sky dimension to Minecraft. It is filled with floating islands, various dungeons and mobs, and unique loot. The most important thing when entering this dimension, keep an eye out so you don't fall down, because otherwise you'll just end up down in the overworld. But once you have enough gear and are ready to take on the challenges of this dimension, well, let's go ahead and start at the very beginning. When you enter the Aether, you will be given a parachute as well as a book. The parachute is for when you eventually fall down, it will slow your fall. While the book is to identify any item you will find in the Aether to give you a short explanation of what it does and what it can do. This is much better than searching in an external wiki. But let's first of all take a look at the normal mobs that roam around in the Aether. Aether mobs. Hopping around the sky islands, you will encounter air bunnies, sheep puff, flying cows, and flying pigs called figs. They all drop various mundane resources like food, wool, or string. But some of the custom mobs on the solid islands are blue or golden sweats, which are basically slimes that can drop sweat balls, which you can either use as a replacement for slime balls, or you can convert certain blocks with them. You might also encounter differently colored moa. These big bird creatures are really awesome, because they can be saddled, ridden, and flown. This should be one of your first goals in the Aether, because travel with them is so much easier. If you can find yourself a black moa, those have the highest jumps, so put a saddle on it and fly away. You might also encounter whirlwinds. Be careful, as they will try to throw you off. Similar to the flying mob called the Zephyr, they will blast you with an air blast, trying to knock you off so you fall to your doom. There are also completely ambient creatures like the air whale. Really nice to see. Humble beginnings. After you've taken in all the wildlife around you, it's best you start by ditching those diamond tools and getting yourself wooden tools again? Well, it's Skyroot to be exact. And while you might think it's a downgrade, the Aether-specific tools are actually much more effective inside of the dimension. While yes, the overworld tools do work, it is suggested you go along the progression path of the Aether tools. That's the reason I suggest quickly upgrading to Holy Stone, similar to the base game. The ores you will find inside of the islands are Ambrosium ore, which is basically the Aether's version of coal and fuel, Zanite ore, which is a gemstone for iron tier-like tools, and lastly Gravite ore, which is actually very interesting because it falls like sand, but upwards. You'll also need at least Zanite or an iron pickaxe to mine this stuff. If you want to rush the progression and immediately go to Gravitite, then you'll first need to process this in a new workstation called the Altar. It's easily craftable and it takes Ambrosium as a fuel, and it will even let you repair your gear. I do suggest you at least go to the level of Zanite, if not Gravitite, before taking on any dungeon, because they can be quite tough. And speaking of dungeons, let's go ahead and take a look at the first dungeon, the Bronze Dungeon. This dungeon can be quite hard to find, as there is only one exposed entrance in the side of a floating island, and is sometimes very well hidden. Don't let these chests fool you, because some of them are mimics in disguise. They can drop some awesome loot, but you might also be jump scared a couple of times. Walking over the wrong blocks will spawn sentries. These block-like creatures will lock onto you and explode on contact. Best stay away or slay them as soon as possible. However, some of the chests in this dungeon are legit, and they can contain some pretty awesome loot like rings or pendants. Some versions of these accessories are just for decoration, while others confer a bonus like mining speed or giving other benefits. We'll take a look at those in a bit. In the Bronze Dungeon, the boss you will fight is called the Slider. Hopefully you packed a pickaxe, because swords or other weapons will not harm this block. As its name suggests, it slides around, knocking you around everywhere. The fight itself is not particularly difficult, but the Slider is tanky as frick. So in addition to your pickaxe, hopefully you brought some patience. But upon defeating the first boss, you are granted the bronze key used to unlock the bronze treasure chest that opens up to you. This will have some seriously awesome loot in it. So after this fight, let's talk a little bit about the additional gear and the loot you get in this mod. New loot. Indeed, because inside your inventory you have a nifty button which will reveal a whole new part of your inventory. You have slots for a pendant, a cape, a shield, 2 accessories, 2 rings, and a glove. Like I already mentioned, some of the items you can pick there confer a benefit, while others are just decorative. It's of course luck on what you will get, But things to look an eye out for are, for example, the Agility Cape, which adds a block step, which I personally really like. You might also keep an eye out for the Shield of Repulsion, which deflects projectiles back towards the enemy. An incredible accessory worth having. Other than that, any glove is worth having as it increases your base attack value. Some of these can even be crafted. Some weapons or loot you might find include the Valkyrie Lance, the Phoenix Bow, or the Flaming Sword. Those in particular are not craftable and can only be found as loot, but they can aid you in your continued adventures. And you're probably eager to get to the next dungeon, aren't you? Well, before you embark, consider making some healing stones, enchanted darts, and enchanted berries on the altar, and maybe even enchanting your Gravitite gear. Because now we're entering the Silver Dungeon. The Silver Dungeon. This is the Temple of the Valkyrie. As you move along this delicate dungeon, Valkyrie will start spawning in. But don't attack them just yet. They are not hostile. As per usual, you can loot and fight mimics to your heart's content until you find the Queen Valkyrie's throne room. When you talk to her, before you can fight, you have to bring her 10 medals of the Valkyries inside of the temple. Now be aware, those female warriors pack a punch. Even with full Gravitite gear, I suggest you get some regen by using the healing stones in addition to any other help you can think of. Once you've collected the 10 medals, you can now fight the boss, the Valkyrie Queen. But heed my words, this fight is incredibly tough. As I said, really think about enchanting your Gravitite gear before you're fighting her. No ranged weapon will work on her, so only your sword is of use. Try to stay just out of her range and circle around. However, be aware that from time to time she will summon these orbs, which will slowly inch their way towards you and shock you with a lightning strike. Avoid at all costs. As tough as the fight might be, with well-enchanted gear and a bit of patience and some elbow grease, you will be able to defeat this boss. And her demise will grant you this silver key. This one, of course, used to unlock the silver treasure chest. Once again, this will grant you some awesome loot and rewards usable for the next leg of your adventure. And that, of course, is the Gold Dungeon, which is the realm of the Sun Spirit. The Sun Spirit. Indeed, this is the last fight until you've conquered the Aether. It is even more challenging than the Queen Valkyrie fight. That is, if you don't cheese it. The Sun Spirit itself cannot be harmed directly. You need to wait until ice shards spawn and throw them back into his face. Now, if you really want to break this fight, get yourself some fire resistance and you'll pretty much just laugh as you slowly whittle away at the Sun Spirit's health. Each time you hit it with an ice shard, a tinier version of himself will spawn, which you can actually harm by conventional means. After either a grueling fight or some cheese tactics by using fire resistance, you will be victorious. This will grant you the gold key and the sun altar. No longer will there be eternal day in the Aether. You now control time in this dimension. The gold treasure chests also offers you some amazing rewards. And when gathering your rewards, it might be time to pack up your things. Make sure you have a parachute on and glide your way down to the overworld. Your job here is done. Alternatively, you can also take a Moa with you because they are so friggin' fast to travel with. Ditch that horse and say yes to a Moa travel. The Aether. Now what can we say about the Aether? Well, there's of course plenty more blocks and items to discover which I haven't all shown. Lots of equipment and loot to be found and used. It's absolutely amazing to see this vintage and original mod from so long ago be updated to a new Minecraft version. It still retains its old charm and stays true to the original version of the mod. An absolutely amazing mod that is eternalized in the Mod Hall of Fame. As per usual, I cannot suggest enough to try out the Aether mod for yourself. Take a look at the first link in the description below and you'll have an awesome experience. And you are awesome if you watch this video right here. Hope to see you there. So, yeah.